Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the channel. Now, in today's lesson, I'm going to teach you about timecode. We're going to talk about what it is, why you need it, and if you're using the ScriptE program, I'm going to teach you how to sync it up to your files. But before we go into that, I'm going to give you a little history lesson on slating because it's quite an interesting story if you haven't heard it before. So let's get started. Okay, so productions have a two-system process when it comes to making a film. You have your audio and you have your picture, and they have to have a way of syncing together. All right, so that's where timecode comes in. That is what the editor uses to put those two pieces of medium together to sync up so that the picture is matching the sound. And the way we usually do that is with a slate. Now, the slate has taken on a lot of different forms over the years. So let me give you a little history lesson. When film first started, it was all about capturing motion. In this 1896 film, people were amazed at how real it was. So filmmakers really didn't worry about organizing shots. They just pieced them together randomly. Okay, so after a while, story started to come into filmmaking, and they found that by putting scene numbers to the script, it would help them organize the script better. But they needed a way to, keep track of them when they were filming, because sometimes things, as you all know, things are shot out of order. So they needed to know how to identify the film. So that's when the slate came in. Now, if you notice on this slate here, there isn't a clapper at the top. That's because their sound wasn't invented yet. So that came later, but this was one of the very first slates that came about. And if you notice, they're called slates because that's what they were made out of, slate, so that they can write on them with chalk. Then finally, sound came into the picture, literally. So you probably have heard of the term talkies. Well, this was the very first talkie that came into film. It's called The Jazz Singer, and this film was made in 1927. So they needed a way to match up the sound to the picture. And this is when the director, F.W. Thring, introduced the clapper onto the slate for the first time. Now, this is a clip from the movie Singing in the Rain. Now, if you haven't seen it, here's your homework. I love this movie. But not only is it funny, but it's very entertaining. And it's a really good example of the struggles that they had when sound first came out. You know, careers were ended because they couldn't, the people that were doing silent films couldn't cut the sound because they just didn't have the voice for it. And this one is a real good example of how, careers were made and broken because of it. Now, here are a couple of slates that you'll see on set very commonly. Now, the one on the left, and these are called dummy slates, by the way, because they don't have time code on them. Now, the one on the left is made out of slate, just like those very first ones. The one on the right is made out of plastic, and then you'll notice that it's white. And they found that when you put them on white like that, they have a tendency to show up better on film. So that's why they kind of migrated over to that kind of material. And also the one on the right has color codes on the clapper. So the reason they do this is so that it helps production or post-production with the color correction when they're working with the film in post. Now, it's really important to make sure that you get your slating right because, okay, for example, in this movie, Amazing Grace, this is a perfect example of somebody dropping the ball and not slating, just not enough slates. Sidney Pollack had to actually shelve this film in 2018 after he finished filming it because he couldn't put it together because there weren't enough slates. Could you imagine? So later on, they were actually able to salvage it with the new technology that had come out. But my gosh, having to shelve a film because there wasn't enough slates. I'm sure he wasn't too happy about that. Now, the timecode slate, or smart slate as it's called, was developed in the late 1980s or the early 90s. So productions were becoming more streamlined, and the studios wanted to become more efficient. So they came up with this smart slate that basically showed the digital time code on the slate itself. So it made it a lot easier for the editor to cut the film. Before there were digital slates, the sound was matched up with the clapperboard by making a line on the film where the sticks hit. Now we line it up digitally. So in this video, the top line is blue, and that's the sound, and the picture is green. So the marks are then lined up to sync the film. Okay, so let's go over how to slate properly. All right, first of all, you got to make sure that the slate is in the frame. Okay, obviously, this is a student film, and they're not too concerned about whether the slate is in the frame or not. In fact, they're not concerned about slating that much at all because there's not even any numbers on the slate. Looks like they just got it out of the box. Make sure that, even if you're doing a student film, that there are numbers on the slate, because in this situation, for example, yes, it's a student film and they're probably saying, oh, it's no big deal. But it is, because when you get into the editing room and you're hearing obviously they're doing audio, because I can hear them saying take one, take two, whatever. But when you get into the editing room, they're going to hear the sound saying, all right, scene 14, take two, scene 14, take three. How do they know what take that is? Because there's nothing on the slate to compare it to, so they don't know what to do, what to match it up to. All right, so it's very important. Make sure there's numbers on the slate. Now, make sure it's in frame. The scenario that you're watching right now is not uncommon on a professional set, where basically they're just throwing up there and it's not even seen, or they do it so fast you can't even see the numbers. So you've got to make sure that the slate is up there. They roll it, they clap it, and then they stop for a second so they can see what the numbers are, and then they walk out or take it out. Okay, so make sure that because I've had editors call me before and say, hey, the guys aren't getting the slate in the frame, or they're taking it out too quickly and it's blurred, so they can't really make out the numbers. So you got to make sure, and then you're going to have to go tell the AC, hey guys, you got to make sure the slates get in there because the editor's not getting it. Okay, so it's going to come back to you if the slates aren't done properly. Now, you got to make sure that the numbers are correct also and legible. All right. One of the things, and just so you know, there are letters that we do not use on the set. I'm going to do a whole other video on slating, but just so you know, we don't use the I because it looks like a 1. We don't use the S because it looks like a 5. We don't use the O because it looks like a 0. We don't use a Z because it looks like a 2, and I don't use a Q. Many people don't use Qs because that looks like an O as well. So, and I believe the ScriptE program doesn't use it either. So, because I use ScriptE, when the numbers automatically go to the next one, it skips those particular letters. And you would do that too. That's standard in the industry. So nobody's going to say, hey, you went to T instead of S. Well, yeah, because that's just standard. You just don't use those letters. Make sure that the camera's rolling. Okay, there's been many times when I've looked up and they clapped it and the little light isn't on, on the monitor. It's like, hey guys, the camera's not rolling. Oh, okay, so then they'll have to do it. So just make sure the camera's rolling. All right. Make sure they can hear you, because there's been times when I've been on the set and say Video Village is around the corner and you yell out the number, hey, scene 2 or scene 2, take 1 is up. And, they'll say what? And I'll have to yell it out again. And if that's the case, or they don't say anything, but they do put up the slate properly, check with the guys. Say, hey, are you guys hearing me okay? Because sometimes there's, a lot of stuff that's going on set, and they just can't hear you. And they'll say, hey, you know what? Yeah, say it a little louder because we're not hearing you. I'll say, okay, fine. You know what? I'm going to come around the corner, or I'm going to get closer to you, kind of in between Video Village and the camera, so that they can hear me and I can actually, be by Video Village. Okay, so now for all of you ScriptE people out there, I'm sure this is the moment you've been waiting for me to show you how to sync up your program with the time code on the Slate. Okay, so here we are in my iPad, and if you notice here, up here in the upper left corner, you're going to see a button that says Timecode. Well, if it's white, that means that it has not been set yet, so we're going to set that right now. So we're going to click on that, and then we're going to go to Capture. Now, if you haven't set up your iPad to capture video, then it'll ask you to check the settings for that. But I just got a little clip here from the computer, and I'm going to run it, and we're going to snap it just as it closes. Okay, so there we have it. Let me get back out of here. All right. So now we've captured it there on our screen. Okay, we're gonna click on here, use. We're gonna click use photo. Okay, and then it's gonna show up here in the box. So then with that, we're gonna go to this box here, and we're going to put in those numbers. So that is 05, and then we have, let's see, 05. It looks like 12, and then we're going to go here to 21, and then it looks like 00, 00. And then we're going to click on set. Okay, and it's going to give you a little notice that says timecode set, and we're going to say okay. And if you want to verify, you just click it on here, and it shows here these numbers will somewhat match up to those numbers. You'll notice they're a little different, but the reason being is that it's constantly rolling because it's set already. If I click it again, it's gonna go to the current time. Now, the one thing that so that after you do that, then you just say done, and then the time code is going to turn red. That means that the time code has been set. Okay, so that's how you sync up your time code to the ScriptE program. All right, so that's it for now. Let me know if you have any questions. Like I said before, if there's something was not clear for you, put them in the comments for me, and I will be happy to answer them for you. If you haven't subscribed and you like what you're seeing, please subscribe. It helps me out. And give me a like and hit the little bell so that you know when I have a new video out. All right, and that's all I have for now. All right, we'll talk to you soon.